Hello, and welcome to Your Play or Mine, the only podcast out there that is combining sport and the arts in one show. I'm your host, Sarah Mackenzie Foley, and this is season 1, episode 4. And if you are stumbling across the podcast for the first time, I would highly recommend, after you've listened to this episode, going back and starting from the beginning at episode 1. I've had an absolutely fantastic list of guests and I want to make sure that you hear them all, so don't forget to do that. Speaking of which, my guest for this episode is someone who has previously described themselves as a romantic football fan who writes songs, and at that moment I knew he was going to be perfect for the show. He is probably better known to you as Niall McNamee, singer-songwriter and actor, a lifelong avid Leeds United and Dundalk FC fan. We get to chat about that obviously in this episode, but we had just great crack. We finished recording it a short while ago and I actually had a pain in my face afterwards from laughing. So I have no doubt that you're going to get a huge amount of enjoyment and entertainment out of this episode. Without further ado, here is season 1, episode 4 with Niall McNamee. Niall, welcome to Your Play or Mine. How are things?
Thanks for having me. Things are good. Bit flat out at the moment, but all good. Yeah.
Good complaint to have, I feel.
Yeah, I think so. It can be. You know. Yeah.
You're actually the second Niall of season 1, which is really saying something because we're only on episode 4, which means like 50% of my guests have been Niall's. So I think I'm onto something.
Who's next, Niall Horan or Niall Quinn?
Oh, I mean, we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see. But I always start off each show with the same 3 kick-off questions. And I always love to find out, first of all, from people, what is your very first sporting memory?
I was thinking about this. It's hard as a Leeds United and an Ireland fan. It's hard to know what your first memory actually is, because I feel like brainwashing has happened to such an extent that I would nearly go, I'd say my first memory was the 1972 FA Cup final when Leeds beat Arsenal. And then I have to remind myself that isn't my memory. I've just been brainwashed to watch it from a young age. Yeah. No, I think my first, and then it's also that thing of going, I know the first football match I went to was Leeds West Brom, or West Ham, one of the two. Okay. It didn't matter when I was so young. It didn't matter. It was one of them. But my first real proper memory of going, oh, this is sport. I'm excited about this, with the 2002 World Cup. All of it, getting out of classes to watch it. I remember distinctly my dad explaining to me that because it was in Japan and Korea, that we would be up at like 7 o'clock in the morning and be having bacon sandwiches and watching these games. It was just so exciting. I mean, but if we'd known then that was the last World Cup.
Oh, stop.
Up to now, then it just, you wouldn't believe it. But yeah, I just remember the excitement of that. And I remember also being too young for it as well. I remember, I think it was during extra time in one of the games, my mum taking me and a couple of friends for a walk, because we were kind of bouncing off the walls a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was huge for me. Although those players are solidified forever now to me as like the main Ireland team.
Yeah.
Just in the same way I think that the teams you think of as Premier League teams are just the first 20 that are in your first sticker book.
So true.
Yeah, it's weird.
Nice.
Like Ipswich being in the Premier League makes total sense to me, because that's where they were when I started.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 2002 World Cup. It was a great time. It's a great time to get into football, and I often wonder, it's true what they say about like how women's football is going and stuff with World Cups. You realise looking back that seeing those big moments will have a big impact on your future reading about sport and Ireland in general. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely punch above our weight, I think, in most scenarios, to be fair, which is great.
We definitely do. And as the years went on and we stopped qualifying for things, I remember very clearly my dad saying to me, been a few years disappointments. I think we'd lost to
Mm.
Switzerland for the 400th time in the 12 or something like that. And my dad said, we do punch above our weight. We shouldn't have qualified for any World Cups or anything. When you consider it's, first of all, men's soccer, but that's half the country gone already.
Yeah.
And then you've got all the people who play GAD and all the people who play rugby and all the people who don't play sport. That incredibly small pool. We're probably statistically as much chance of qualifying as Latvia or someone, but we have,
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I always find it odd looking back, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland, looking into the past, it's weird that we haven't done more in soccer. Back in the day when some of the best English teams were winning the European Cup and everything, we were full of Scottish and Irish and Welsh players, and it didn't seem to transfer. George Best never played at a World Cup, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Johnny Giles never played at a World Cup. So yeah.
Yeah, we won't get into the changing allegiances, etc. argument, because I feel like that'll just we'll go on a total tangent with that.
All I'll say is if there was ever any hope of me gonna be like even just being civil about England in a World Cup, Declan Rice, Jack Grealish have totally ruined that. Yeah.
It's like he who must not be named ×2. It's just not. You just can't talk about it.
Unforgivable. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand it. As someone who I was born in Leicester, and like half of my family are all second generation, and I just know that none of them would have picked England, even if Ireland never came calling. So the idea is, it's not even an annoyance. It's not even a disappointment. I'm totally flabbergasted that they could do it and not feel weird about it,
100%. No, I'm with you on that one, definitely. Kind of brings me nicely, though, to the next one, which is, who is your personal sporting GOAT, your absolute greatest of all time?
Yeah, I feel really embarrassed because I'm such a self-indulgent sports fan. Like, I don't, I mean this, and I have to be honest. I'm doing my best to be honest when answering questions and stuff. When the Champions League final was on the other week, am I allowed to swear on this? No?
Yeah.
Yes. I honestly couldn't give a fuck about it. And honestly, I couldn't care less. I couldn't tell you who was in it now.
Yeah. Fair.
I forget the week after. And I'm so just into my own track of what I like, which means as an Irish Leeds United fan, my hero of all time is Gary Kelly.
Yeah.
Because, and he's he's a good player, but he wasn't the most gifted player. It's weird to call him a GOAT.
Yeah.
And part of me hates the phrase entirely. He was very modern and used by people who aren't real football fans.
We'll say legend, sporting legend.
Legend, yeah. Gary Kelly. He's from Drogheda, just down the road. I won't hold that against him. But he played for Ireland for a long time. He was a messer. Famously, one of the lads in the dressing room would be out on the piss and doing karaoke and stuff with Jason McAteer and all that. Yeah. But also, he, after Jack Charlton, of all people, is the second longest player to play for Leeds, and he stuck with us. He was with us from the 90s right through the Champions League, all the way down to League One, and yeah, I loved him for that. I loved it, and famously as well, Ian Hart's uncle, and they played in the same team. So
wow.
Yeah, so Gary Kelly is my guy.
Love that.
Yeah, just love him to bits. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, that's the whole thing of it, and I think it's the loyalty piece too. That's another thing you don't really see that much now, is players sticking with teams through thick and thin. So I think when you've seen it, you're like, you feel like you know that person,
You do, and they love the club. They still support Leeds and all that. And I think when I started watching football and supporting Leeds United, it was. I think my first memory of Leeds was nearly going, "What does relegation mean?" Oh no! And off we went. I never got any of the good days. Being my age is a terrible age to be a Leeds fan.
Yeah.
And I remember, I was thinking about this earlier. I think it really impacted me watching most of my favourite players fuck over the club and leave. When I thought, though they play for us, they love this club as much as I do. I had to learn very quickly that Alan Smith was going to Man United, and Harry Kewell was going to Galatasaray, and and you know, the players that were left over, the ones who left but didn't take as big a fee, Mark Viduka, and I think we were paying Rio Ferdinand and Harry Kewell until about 5 years ago still.
Oh my gosh.
And it really impacted me so much so that I was playing for one Sunday League team as a child, and a new manager came in, and he was a horrible bastard, really nasty, and I stopped enjoying it. But I couldn't join another club. I felt I was too. I didn't have it in me. I didn't want to join another club. That's why I started playing rugby. I literally changed sport instead of changing team.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think it really impacted me, that loyalty thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all have a one club, man. I often think to myself, if overnight someone could click and make me the most gifted footballer in the world, I genuinely would play for Leeds in Ireland. And that
I love that.
Maybe retire to Dundalk FC, or Celtic at some point. But ultimately, it would have to be in a different league, you know.
Yep. No, love that. Yeah. Sticking with it. I feel like this might have been quite hard for you to narrow down based on your last answer. What's the most emotional sporting moment you've ever experienced? It's a long list. I know.
Such a long list. And I read it at first and thought, oh, what was the best moment or whatever. I thought, no, emotional can mean a lot.
Yeah.
I've been trips away to Europe, watched Dundalk. I've been to a lot of Ireland games, home and away. And maybe it's the sad Leeds and Ireland fan that I am, that I do think of the bad moments more than the good. I remember going to the Aviva to watch this 5-1 to Denmark playoffs. That was hard. I think that I remember Bielsa's first season with Leeds going to the playoff semi-final, and we lost out of the blue to Derby. And we'd been trying to get into the Premier League for 15 years, and it just felt we'd had the best season ever. Bielsa was the best man ever, and it felt like that was our chance, and we blew it.
Yeah.
I remember that night getting home, and I was seeing someone time, and she picked that moment to tell me that she was in love with me, and I was in love with her as well. But I had to say, listen, I'm in love with you too, but I need to go because my dad's sobbing on the couch. And I had to try and explain to her, who's not a soccer fan at all, that whilst I understand this is a big moment, I need to mind my father because my dad goes home and away to every match. I'm trying to think of like something joyful to go on.
That's incredible.
We went to Bosnia to watch Ireland in the playoff.
Wow.
It was crazy. And the fog was so bad that we didn't know Robbie Brady had scored until he ran out of the mist cheering, you know. Yeah, it was terrible. If you watch the footage on YouTube, you can't see a thing.
Wow.
And that was wild. And I remember getting knocked out by this Bosnian fella. There's a picture of me with a big black eye with me Dundalk jacket on. Which was great until I got home the next week and was told that a film that I'd worked on a month before had to redo one scene. And so they had to film it from one side so they didn't catch my big black eye. And I'm sorry, I'm finding it hard to narrow it down. It was an incredibly big emotional moment when Leeds finally got promoted.
Of course,
but that was hard. I watched it on my own. No, not watched it on my own. I went on my own to the garage in the middle of the countryside because it was lockdown.
Okay.
And waiting all those years for us to get promoted and being in the ground so often, and suddenly I was just in the garage ringing my dad and watching, you know. But I do remember probably a great moment was when we equalised with Germany in Gelsenkirchen.
Mm-hmm.
John O'Shea, worst goal ever. It just kind of bounced off someone's arse, and then he kind of fell over and it rolled into the goal. And just out, you know, limbs everywhere. I think I must have gone down about 5 rows in chairs after everyone. And I think in the shock and in the booze that we'd consumed all day, I was more euphoric because I thought we scored a winner, but I forgot that Germany had scored earlier in the game.
Oh
And then I was like,
God.
still no an equalizer
Yeah.
against the world champions. And then it turned out that, yeah, I remember we thought the qualifiers were over, but then Scotland lost to Georgia, which meant, I think it was Georgia, and suddenly we were qualifying. Anyway, loads of moments there.
Yeah.
But I think that was the moment. Yeah, I think Gelsenkirchen. I had so many good moments. Sorry, I couldn't pick one. I've got to be able to think of like
The pinnacle.
I think if it wasn't for lockdown, then maybe Leeds getting promoted would have been the moment.
Yeah.
Leeds beating Man City in the Premier League was great. I don't know. I can't choose, and I'm not gonna waste too much time thinking about more.
Well,
some devastating moments and some great moments. Yeah.
You had a balance there, good and bad. So I think that's a good representation. Sport can be very cruel at times, but I think euphoria is a good word as well. Magic moments in sport are kind of instant, especially if you're there in the crowd, they happen and you feel it straight away. And it's captured in that exact moment. Whereas I feel like and it's probably the same in theatre, as an actor, you're getting kind of an immediate reaction from the audience.
Yeah.
But then with music and on-screen acting, you make the thing and hopefully you love it and you get the magic of creating it within the group. But then the reaction is delayed because you have to wait for it to come out, or you have to wait to play a show. What's that like from the perspective of being the creator? Because you then have to sit and an interviewer saying oh, did you know when you were making it that it was going to be great or whatever, and you're like, let me cast my mind back. Is it weird for you?
Yeah, it's excruciating, to be honest. It's not. Patience is not my strong point.
Yeah.
Even in the recording studio, my producer is when he gets a new big influx of money, the first thing he's going to do is build a playpen for me on it. Because
amazing.
There is something great about that instant thing you get with sports. Jesus, who could tell you what it is that happens inside your body when you take a ball down, turn and hit the back of the net? You don't remember it. It's total instinct.
Yep.
Isn't it funny with sport? I always think the moments that you're shit or you fuck something up are the moments where you're totally concentrated and you know what you're doing. And the moments where you smash it are when it's pure instinct.
Yeah, 100%.
It's hard having to wait for something to come out. And there's always a disconnect then, thankfully, when you watch something or when you record something. It's weird. I don't know, when you've worked really hard on something and it comes out, you might watch it or listen to it once, but for me, that's it,
Yeah.
Whereas if, I sit and watch highlights of my favorite sports moments all the time. It never gets boring.
Yeah.
When you come to the end of the day and you've been to the best match ever and someone's won Leeds or Ireland or whatever, and then you will just sit there and watch the highlights again, and it just
100%.
brings that joy comes back. It's a hard one. I mean, what I would say is sport is so important to me as an artist because I know a lot of people that their whole thing is that they're into art. They're a musician or an actor, and that is their thing.
Yeah.
And outside of that, and outside of sport, it's hard to, if someone's not into sport, or they're not an actor or a dancer or something, hard to kind of think of an equivalent to suggest to someone to pick up as a hobby.
Yeah.
But for me, it's great because, if I didn't have sport, then the devastating moments that come with a difficult career in the arts would be all that I could hang on to. But I could audition for something and it'd be the biggest thing I want. I don't get it and it breaks my heart. But if Leeds are playing that night, for 90 minutes at least, that's all that matters, And I would link it to the same reason why going for a cold plunge in the sea is good for you, because we live in a world that's increasingly difficult to switch off from your thoughts and what's going on.
Yeah.
And when you're in the sea, all you can think about is how cold you are. Yeah. And when you're watching sport, all you can think about is please fuck score, please save my day. So it's a lifesaver. I don't know what I'd do without it.
Yeah. And I think you make a good point there where you're like, no matter what happened in your day, you'll go back and you'll watch and you'll get joy out of it. There's also,
Yeah.
I feel with sport, there's this like, there's always hope. You know what I mean? Like you'll cling to any tiny, and sometimes it's the hope that kills you, but you'll never lose it. You know what I mean? Like you can watch your team lose and lose, even get relegated, but you will still show up for the next game and you will still watch the next one if you're not there physically.
That's true, but for that reason, like there's a sadness I have about sport and how professional it's getting, because I think we're at a point with soccer especially where it's a bit like rugby. Rugby was always a sport that, generally speaking, the favourite will win. It's just that's the sport it is, the way it is, is there hope technically that Canada might pull up a result against New Zealand in the Rugby World Cup? Technically, but they're not going to.
Yeah.
But if you're in a World Cup and, Ireland are playing Brazil in soccer, there is a chance, but not as much anymore in soccer because it's more technical. I think it's really affecting Irish soccer because our whole thing in the past was, I know we're shite. I know we got players hardly in the Championship or League One, but give us England for the day and we will win. And now we've got England this time, and I think everyone's like, they're really good and they have a good manager, and we're poor and we don't have a manager. And those days of being able to pull a result up against a bigger team, they're not there like they used to be. Jack Charles's tactics wouldn't work today. They wouldn't.
Fair.
Fair. Anyway, again, bringing it to it because I'm a Leeds fan and that's what we do.
You'd just be like sad chats with Niall McNamee.
And then they scored another goal.
And then,
we got relegated again. And then it was administration again. Minus points.
You spent time, obviously, a lot of time between both England and Ireland, and you have a team on either side of the water.
I mean, what's interesting is, like, I always think if I supported Dundalk and Liverpool, I don't think anyone would bat an eyelid. Like everyone who supports Dundalk FC has an English or they support Celtic as well. There's never been like I've spent a lot of time in England. I have lots of English friends and stuff. But as I say, for me, there's never been a conflict. I think it's interesting. Had I gone to school in England, but it was from an Italian family, then I think maybe there's the chance then that you might support Italy sometimes at the World Cup and England. I don't think we come back to the Declan Rice, Jack Grealish thing. You can't support both. No, but I want to. And also, you said earlier, just there, you said, with the teams you've chosen and stuff. I don't fucking choose any of these things.
Born to it.
I was brainwashed by my father, and by all accounts, it's child abuse. Because sometimes when my day is being ruined by fucking Leeds United, I go, I got no link with Leeds. No, not a link at all. And yet they have such power to ruin my day.
Yeah.
Dundalk is actually a massive Leeds town.
Oh,
there's so many Leeds fans in Dundalk and all over Ireland. I mean, back in the day, and I mean this, you'd be flying over to Ellen Road on a Saturday morning from Dublin Airport. Leeds would be in League One, minus 15 points. I would say there was 3 times the amount of Leeds fans that Man United or Liverpool or anything like that. Yeah, easily. Wow. Leeds has a massive following in Ireland and in Norway and Scandinavia. They do flights from Oslo, chartered flights to Leeds.
Bizarre.
Huge, massive club. It is, Yeah. I don't want to sound like a Liverpool fan here and be like, such a special club. Leeds are massive, huge.
Yeah.
Totally brainwashed, totally stuck. I can't support anyone else, nor would I want to, even though it is very painful sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it feels like an Irish club, Leeds. I don't think many people had. The only difference with Leeds is that there's a lot of clubs that would identify with either being linked to Celtic or Rangers in England. So Liverpool would be a Celtic team, and Chelsea would be a Rangers team. But Leeds is kind of split down the middle, and apparently in the 70s there used to be part of the Leeds crowd at Ellen Road would be where the Celtic Leeds fans sat, and part of Ellen Road would be where the Rangers Leeds fans at. And it's
Whoa.
kind of saying that, yeah. So it's weird. You'll have all backgrounds and then come together for Leeds. So, yeah.
Amazing. That's like, oh my God,
So-
there's like community, and then you're going down another level again, and it's like nothing to do with the club at all. It's just another
I
club
know,
entirely.
it's really odd. Leeds United saying YRA, we're Yorkshire's Republican Army, we're Army. Like, it's so weird.
Stop. Oh
You
my
know,
God.
it's there's such a mix of different people involved in that club, and yeah, it's great. If I tell you what, if I'm in Ireland and Leeds are playing on telly, it's a treat, because the Ireland's the place I'll find them in a pub on telly.
Yeah.
More than England. If I'm in
Well-
London, I can't find anywhere else show Leeds. Dublin, easy.
Yeah, it's interesting the way those connections form. It's always been really bizarre to me because we're a rugby household first and foremost, and that means that I had the luxury of growing up with a team that I could always go see them play. You know, like it was very strange to me then to meet people.
And that was a good era for Munster, I take it you're talking about.
I
Good
was
era.
at the Heineken Cup when they won it the second time. That's my best sporting memory. But it was so weird to me then meeting people in school being like, oh, what sport are you into? Soccer. What team do you support? And then they'd say an English club. And because I didn't know that much about soccer at the time, I was like, but you've never been to a game, or you've never, you know, like it was so strange to me, and I couldn't kind of understand, like, how are you so emotionally connected when you've only ever seen them on the TV? But it just depends.
It is odd as well. Like, you know, one of the big wonders of it all is through all of the historical stuff that's happened between Ireland and England 70, 80 years and before it. Throughout all that time, the most anti-English person in West Belfast would still to have their English soccer team. And it makes no sense, but they would. And it was like a different thing.
Yep.
I mean, it's, you know, you'll have these lads who are like, you know, proper Republicans in West Belfast, and they're diehard Liverpool fans. That's
so odd.
I love it, but it is odd.
Yeah, absolutely.
Try and explain it to an alien or to just somebody who's Spanish or something.
Yeah, just anyone not from the British Isles. Yeah, they're just not going to understand.
Yeah, rugby. I mean, I remember that Munster's team, and that was great because they were beating Leicester every week. Like, you know, that time.
Yeah, and, there was a very strong rivalry there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and all my mates supported Leicester, and I loved it. 'Cause I'm not linked to Munster, but I think at the time Leinster hadn't done much for a long time. Ulster were non-existent, as were Connacht. So I think Ireland supported Munster back then. You know, it felt like it was it felt like Munster was the only hope. And Leinster were a bit later. Am I right in that? I'm not.
100%. Yeah. Leinster didn't come into their own until later on. Although
it's Trico, wasn't it? Really, that squad.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and like it didn't take the sting out of any of the interpros. Do you know what I mean? Like you would still go up to, like, similar to what you said earlier. Like you would still go up to Lansdowne Road at the time, and it was like very much. Actually, it's very similar to the Premier League clubs, or I suppose just the English clubs in general. Like the Munster players had tickets for this area, and the Leinster or the supporters had tickets for the other area. It's not that much of a big deal now. Like you'd sit around Leinster supporters and just like take the piss and have the crack. But at the time it was so strong. It was like, no, I can't actually physically be near you. Like it was very intense.
It's changed massively. I mean, geez, if you want to look at how Irish rugby's changed, I mean, Connacht and Ulster, you know, comparatively to before, the last 10 years have been flying. It's been great to see.
Yeah.
I always feel like maybe I should be Ulster more than Leinster, because I would support Armagh and the Gad. We're technically north of the border in Ulster, but I don't know why Ulster just doesn't feel like my
doesn't feel like home.
Something about that big red hand that scares me. I don't know.
Fair, it is a bit aggressive. Yeah, it is a bit aggressive.
Yeah.
Your dad, right? Like, and I said this to you the other day because you had a video up on Instagram of him scoring a hat-trick at 6 years of age. Like,
great hat-trick, right?
Yeah, you're like you said, brainwashed, but there's something about it that like you can't switch it off. It's just in there, embedded, and that's it. But you I've learned this kind of through your songs and like seeing even on your Instagram and stuff, you've almost like, you and your friends, it seems like, have created your own little community around it, where it's like, it's a lot of sport chat. It's a lot of like, I mean, even the song Fish Pond, I didn't realize had its own merchandise. And then I saw it was a jersey and I was like, this is brilliant. Like, what does that mean to you? Because that's incredible. I don't think I've seen that before.
I don't know. To be honest, the difficult thing about music is sometimes sometimes it's good to think about your audience, your crowds, your fans and stuff. You try and think of them as how would you feel as a fan and what would you want.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get that totally wrong. When I started saying to my manager and people around me that all of my merch was going to basically be a home and away kit every year of my own and like training jerseys, essentially. People were like, what? And I was like, I think that'll go down well. It's fun. And partly it's because, I really used to love, when I was a kid, sitting and drawing stadiums and drawing football kits and stuff. So to get to design my own is a bit of a bonus. It's a bit daft, but they go down well. And, they're a bit more interesting than just a shirt with, I guess, my face on it or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of an addiction of mine. Making those. I mean, I think I've got home kit and away kit, a retro kit. I don't know why I've got a retro kit, like I was gigging in the 70s and that was the kit. I've got like, I've got like training tops and stuff. I didn't think much of it more than just, this is what I've always wanted to do. So it's a good part of it. I nearly got my own sewing machine. I started trying out to actually make them physically. But I just designed them and then, it's a weird thing. But football's such a big part of me. And again, I don't think I've made a particular effort to get that involved in who I am. I think it just naturally does fall that way. Yeah. I suppose Instagram's about showing your life and who you are as a person outside of art and music and acting. It's all about soccer, really, I either dress smart or as a tracksuit with an Ireland retro jersey,
I do want to talk as well about the theatre and film side of things, because I think sometimes people underestimate the physical and mental kind of stamina and agility that does go into that. And not only the performances themselves, but I think the schedule that goes behind it as well. And it is quite physical at times. Like for the audience, it's different because you're there just on that one night probably to see that show. Whereas the cast is doing maybe 8 shows, like 6 or 7 days a week. And you've done a fair bit of theatre over the years, and you've also done Love Without Walls as well, where you had a pretty significant physical change. I think it's fair to say in that one.
Yeah.
How do you manage, I suppose, your well-being in those scenarios? Because it's not like you have a coach. Do you know what I mean? Like you have to a degree, you have to kind of manage yourself there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's I don't know if I do manage my well-being, to be honest. I think it's I don't know what I'd do if like Love Without Walls was a TV series that I filmed for 6 months every year. Yeah. I wouldn't know how to keep it up that much. It definitely feels like, right, for this month or these 3 months, this one time you're going to do this. Feels like the season's on, Yeah. I feel like I do feel like when I'm on form as an actor for auditions or the job and stuff, it does feel very much like, right, it feels like you're in a team of your own. I think that's how I think of it,
Yeah.
An audition, the morning of that audition is the morning of a match day, and I'm constantly in the same way, which I've always dotted back and forth with in sport. It's the argument between you need to be focused or relaxed stepping onto a pitch. And I would have the same question about auditions or stepping onto the stage or onto a film set. I think it depends. I think you have to get better at changing up and seeing what it needs. I used to swear by, if I had this really big important scene to do an audition, that I wouldn't eat before I did that. Really? I wouldn't want to be satisfied before. That's how I used to do it. Now I'd be hell-bent on make sure you've got food in you, so then you're relaxed and you can do, and that will change again. Yeah. But certainly doing plays can be very musicals especially, very physically exhausting. But, I was working on building sites for hours and hours a day, weeks and weeks, months and months, years ago. Yeah. And I think, so it's hard to complain about being a movie or a play.
Yeah, it gives you perspective.
No one's handing you lemonade or champagne on the building site. So,
fair. Fair. And I suppose you have,
Yeah.
maybe not in an audition scenario, but unless I guess you're auditioning with someone, but in a play or in a musical, you kind of have a team. And in that scenario, like you do have a coach. No, I mean, you've got your
Mm,
director and you've got the teams around that, those are huge. So I
yeah.
suppose it is, you can draw parallels there as well. And it probably feels like you've got a bit more support, even if you're like your role is still your role, but there's other people
You
around you.
do. And it's so important to know how to be part of a team. And I
Yeah.
think, again, like sport, I would say the way I've learned to work in a team has changed, because I think
Mm.
when I started out when I was 18, in a sports sense and in an acting sense, your team would go, pass the fucking ball. You know, it's not all about you.
Yeah.
And now I've moved back to right back, and I'm like, I'll just do my bit and pass and
Yeah.
move. So it changes, but I guess I naturally draw a parallel between the two things,
Yeah.
Um, yeah, they feel very linked to me anyway, and
Yeah.
I love being part of a team. It's why I always love plays and getting on with people, and I think it's why I like, you know, where I am in my career now, where at some points I get to play leading roles, because it feels like you have a
Mm.
responsibility, a bit like a captain or someone, to set
Yeah.
the tone, and there's a great freedom in that for me, because I feel like a nice fella who works hard, gets on with people, and I feel like if you're at the top doing that, then everyone down is like that. But then if you're in the middle or at the bottom of the call sheet, and the man at the top decides to be a wanker, a miserable job. So I think
Yeah.
the only reason I truthfully like lead roles is because I know I can just rule out the wanker above, make him ruin my day.
Yeah, I mean that's as
Yeah,
good a reason as any, but it's also like it's not everyone is going to have that. I suppose that natural thing where they're like, I actually would rather lead positively. I guess some people are just happy to sit back as well. It depends on how
yeah.
you're
It's
built,
hard.
I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose it does. I don't know why I think about it so much. I know mates of
Yeah,
mine that don't, who that do really big roles, and I think about it that. But I always
yeah.
do. I think it's because I was always very nervous on acting
Mm,
sets and stuff, and I always felt a bit like I did feel kind of like a failed soccer player um who ended up doing this job, and a bit of you know not knowing how to do stuff, not knowing how to be. So anyone who above me led me, or was kind or open and friendly, and made an effort, it really made an impact on my performance in that.
yeah,
And so I suppose maybe that's it. Maybe people who are more naturally confident at the start, and people who walked onto things when they were younger with no worries in their head, maybe they don't
mm,
feel like people who were younger or less experienced need any of that. But I
yeah,
I did. So I
yeah.
think it's important. I get the chance to do it too.
Yeah, totally. I think the nursing is interesting because if you read sports autobiographies, it's really interesting to see how different people view it. I remember reading Paul
Yeah.
O'Connell's book years ago, and he was like, yeah, lads be in the dressing room before a big game, like just getting sick, like, it's all like, but now it feels like kind of what you were saying earlier, it's all very professional. It's like AirPods in or like the over ear headphones, like everyone's in their zone because you have the cameras
Mm.
in the dressing rooms now. And it's sort of like, it almost feels like they only come together like just before they're about to go out, which to me is,
Yeah.
you
I wouldn't
know,
like the cameras in the dressing room.
yeah.
I'm always fascinated by that when we thrashed England at Croker,
Mm,
and the national anthem. I remember sobbing my heart out watching that, and I
yeah.
remember then afterwards seeing Rico in the circle, and he's smiling and laughing at the
Mm,
boys, and you must have heard this, but people are like, you look so relaxed in that moment, and he just said, I heard and saw how the boys were in the anthem, and I just knew we were going to win. So there was
mm,
nothing to worry about. And I thought, I'm always fascinated by that moment. How could you know? We
yeah.
did.
I don't know how I'd feel about, yeah, just knowing that you're being viewed in the moment that you're like trying to get ready. It's like if you're on set and before you even
I'd be
go
a
on
show
to,
off.
yeah,
I would
yeah.
fuck it so bad. If there was a camera in the dressing room, I'd be thinking, what cool, weird thing could I make up that
Playing some
and then
kind of
I
game on
not,
the table, you're
yeah,
like,
yeah. I start going, maybe I'm like, I do this, and And then before you know
Doing
it, I've distracted myself.
backflips.
Yeah, doing black flips and stuff. And then I forget that I'm actually supposed to be focused, and I fucking dropped the ball or something because I was too busy showing off the cameras so people would find me interesting. Because the idea that my warm-up routine that was weird that I made up and then I scored, they'd be like, he's a genius, he's mad. But I
It
would have
must
fucked it.
be.
Yeah, I can't. You don't put a camera in front of me because I'll act up.
Fair. Yeah, hence your profession. It's a good thing you're putting it to good use anyway, at least.
Oh gosh.
But my closing question for each guest is, what rule or like ritual regulation would you try and cross over from football into either acting or music? And it can be for an absolute laugh or you can take it seriously. It's up to you.
What rule would, like what sporting rule would I carry
would you
over
try and
to?
cross over into either or both?
Oh. I don't like VAR in sports, but
you're like, I don't want to see any dailies. I'd take away dailies.
That's a really hard one. Do you know what I would like? I get really, that's terrible really, because I've got no attention span at all. And when I'm in a rehearsal and the director makes a decision and then someone who has too many ideas questions it and there maybe is a conversation that goes on too long, I would like the referee, the director to go, no, I've said my piece and given the yellow card. That's what I would like, and then we can fucking move on, because rehearsals are boring as fuck. I just want to do the play, and equally, I don't like football training either. I just want to play the match. It's a terrible rule because you should train, you should rehearse, but I get bored and I just want to do it. Probably why I'm not good at either of them now. The yellow card for talking too much about it.
For talking too much.
Just get out there and do it.
Yeah. Love that.
And I'm very aware that is my fault, not everyone else's. Everyone is totally free and should talk about what they're doing for a minute or two. But I'm like, this is boring. Can we not just play?
But you also don't want to be, I'm guessing you don't want to be the ref either. You're like, I'll let someone else do that. I don't want to, no.
No, I don't want to be the ref. And I'll be the one getting the red at the end for a slide tackle and so on in a rehearse, not in a kick. Yeah, I'm going to get really messed up here now. Like, yeah.
You're just going to be giving people yellow cards in your head the next time you're nervous.
You're slide tackling people in the middle of Shakespeare. Drop the ball. What do you mean?
Someone's got to do that crossover at some point. Surely that has to. Someone's going to have that idea.
I think every version of Romeo and Juliet has been done, and they should stop.
Fair. It has been great crack chatting to you. I hope you enjoyed your experience on the pod, and thank you so much again for being on. I do, before you go, want to give you a chance to just mention where people can find you, like what you've got going on at the moment, because I know you're a busy man. So what have you got?
Thank you very much. And I've had a really good time talking about sport all day, as you probably saw. I'm sporting the Wolf Tones in London on the 5th of July in Finsbury Park, which is going to be great.
Unreal.
And it's the 5th of July, so the day after the election, so we can celebrate getting the fucking Tories out. And I've also I've got an album coming out. I'm going to be starting releasing singles later this year, and the full album will be out in March, I think, is the plan. And I have a rom-com coming out in later this year or starting next year, called One Night in Bath. And on the lead role in that, and I'm English in it. There's a lot about the sport. When I know, can you believe it? Whenever I'm in most things I've ever been in as an actor, I try and decide who my characters support, and I desperately try and get that jersey in the film. I tried to get a Bath City top into the film One Night in Bath, but they wouldn't let me. I also tried to get a Dundalk FC tattoo in The Foreigner, but I think there was legal reasons. I think that.
Oh my God, I love it. Well, they gave Leo Woodall a West Ham tattoo for White Lotus, so you might have to have to force that on the next one. Just do it yourself.
I think I tried to sneak a Leeds United jersey Into Love Without Walls, but I think they caught me.
They're like, no, it's not on theme, not in the script. We're not having it.
It doesn't make sense to use it for them, Niall. Why would the characters support them? Don't muddy up the script. Yeah. But that's that. Yeah, so I've got the album, the film, and there's a few other things on my socials and whatnot.
Brilliant. Well, Niall, thank you very much. It's been great having you on.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.